Hello, everybody. Welcome into another installment of the Mind Your Business podcast series, presented each week by the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce and made possible thanks to our good friends at Appalachian Commercial Real Estate and UNC Health Appalachian. I'm David Jackson, President and CEO of the Chamber. Today, we are talking Blue Ridge Rising, a recent two-state convening about interests surrounding the Blue Ridge Parkway, and plenty more to talk about in that vein. So to do that, we have brought in the Senior Project Manager of Destination by Design, Caroline Stahlschmidt, who not only helped put this Blue Ridge Rising program together, but host this convening in Blowing Rock just earlier this week. So, Caroline, welcome to Mind Your Business. It's great to have you here, and really excited to hear about this project today.
Hello, David. It's great to be here as well. I briefly felt like I was listening to a football game when you started talking.
A little bit of PTSD there, I'm sure. So
no, it's all good. I used to tell my husband I would listen to the games just to hear your announcing. So it's really fun to be here.
Well, now your nightmares come true. So let's first do a little bit of backtracking here. So Blue Ridge Rising is a project that the Boone Area Chamber and a number of other organizations like ours have been involved with for a little over a year now. I just had the coffee cup on my desk a little while ago. But if you could explain to folks that might not be as familiar with what the overall concept of Blue Ridge Rising is about, and then we'll get to why there were all these people in Blowing Rock earlier this week.
Sure, right. So Blue Ridge Rising is an initiative of the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. And if you're not familiar with the foundation, it is the nonprofit partner of the Blue Ridge Parkway. If you're not familiar with the Blue Ridge Parkway, it's a 469-mile road, but most likely everyone listening is, but the road that travels from Virginia to North Carolina and crosses through 29 counties. So the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation has been the nonprofit partner for many, many years for the Parkway, and in the past few years recognized the importance and the value of working with and potentially investing in and lifting up the communities that serve the Parkway. So the gateway communities to the Parkway, these 29 counties and, many, many small and sometimes larger towns and cities along the Parkway. So really is and continues to be the brainchild of the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. And they secured funding to pursue this much larger planning effort to assess the gateway communities and look at how really they can start to lift up the region as a whole. And so that's what Blue Ridge Rising refers to, this lifting up of the region as a whole, connecting these communities together rather than it being two different states and all these different counties and all these communities. Can we lift the region up as a whole to secure funding and resources and really start to nourish the region? So that is the background of the project.
Well, and I think it's important also to remind folks that may not necessarily be Parkway users in a through trip nature. We see the Parkway every day as a recreation area. Some people actually use it to commute to work, especially if you're going or coming from Boone or Blowing Rock. That's the easy, a less congested way to move around the community. But for a lot of folks, it's not only the Parkway itself, but it is the communities that they are able to dip into from one end to the other that make the experience that much more enjoyable. I think what was immediately interesting to our team in engaging in this is that you might hear more about Asheville or Roanoke or Boone and Blowing Rock in our context, but so many smaller communities utilize Parkway visitors as their lifeblood, and much more so than Boone or Blowing Rock may consider. I mean, we've got other things that can drive our economy here, but for a number of smaller communities, especially up near the state line, this is what brings people there. So I would imagine that from that perspective, the lift is even different, where you're talking about big metros versus small communities, that any adjustment to how the Parkway interfaces with them is going to have a monumental difference potentially for their community.
Yeah, 100%. What's been super fascinating for me working on this project for the past year, number one, learning the numbers. So the Blue Ridge Parkway is one of the most visited Park Service units in the entire nation, even bigger than Yellowstone and some of the big parks that we think of. Nearly 16 million visitors per year come to the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's a little more hidden than some of the other national parks because there's no entrance gates. It's not an obvious, entry into or exit out of. It's just so integrated into these communities. And it is a tremendous economic driver, really, for all the communities, big and small, up and down the Parkway. So about $1.7 billion into the communities, because the boundaries of the Parkway are actually quite narrow. It really is the gateway communities that are the experience that the visitor has, going to the restaurants, enjoying the music, buying crafts, all these types of things, hiking on the trails. So that was what the foundation saw. And it actually was one of our nearby communities, the area of Dalton Park and Sparta and Allegheny, when the restaurant and the hotel in Dalton Park closed. That had a tremendous impact on the communities nearby, because there was no one up on the Parkway encouraging visitors to travel down into these smaller communities and experience them. So that was kind of the light bulb moment for the foundation team of, oh, this is really important that we start to turn our focus to the gateway communities and look at how we can better support them and connect them together and continue to have the Parkway be an economic driver.
So I know that before you had the convening, and we'll touch on that here in just a few minutes, you were part of a team that held countless stakeholder groups up and down the Parkway, attended one of those here in the Boone area, and really had robust conversation about what the Parkway means to the area and some thoughts about what community connection could look like. What were some of the prevailing themes from that, and what information were you able to gather as part of that process that ultimately will inform the work that will go under this umbrella in the future?
Yeah, you were at the first meeting, David. So
How about that? Is that why we got the coffee mugs? We were first. That's our
yes,
like
yes.
first
We
and
tried to
twice
have a
moment.
soft landing in a place we knew.
That's awesome.
So yes, the first phase of the project was hosting a listening session in every community that the Parkway crosses through or neighbors. So that's 29 counties, 17 in North Carolina and 12 in Virginia. And then any towns and cities associated or nearby were also, of course, invited. And those were small meetings, really targeted invitations to community leaders, government leaders, business owners in the area, just trying to gather many different perspectives about what's working, what's not, and more so like how can this region come together as a whole, and how can the foundation provide support. So we hosted those meetings from the end of February through the end of June. Which was a real treat for me. I mean, I love this region, so being able to visit all of these communities and learn about them was a total delight. Despite being a lot of meetings, it was really fun, and we came away with lots and lots and lots of notes and ideas, but really came to 6 key themes that emerged from those meetings. So those key themes are marketing, visitor experience, resource protection, education, and capacity and advocacy. So those are the themes that emerged. And within those themes, there are 59 action strategies or initiatives that were identified. So really, we just took all those ideas from the different meetings and where it made sense, coalesced them together and came up with these action strategies. Those strategies are things like land protection. That was one of the most important things that people wanted, because the Parkway is really nothing if there's not views. So land protection in the communities, working to build more trails and greenways in communities, especially that connect into the Parkway land. So making those connections, and then a tremendous amount around marketing. So things like building curated itineraries, travel itineraries, creating some sort of passport program that would highlight the communities, and then also looking at where natural resource protection and visitor experience kind of merge together. So things like looking at dark skies and building more resource protection there, as well as working with travel and bringing visitors in for things like dark sky experiences. So all of that is on the website, which is blueridgerising.com, and you can see all of the initiatives and the information that emerged from these meetings.
Well, and I want to go back for a second to resource protection, because I could imagine that some people might listen to a podcast like this hosted by a Chamber of Commerce and think that we're about the marketing and visitor experiences. But I think that was one of the resounding things that came out of our meeting, and it sounds like was echoed in others, that resource protection for those communities was as important, if not most important, to make sure that you preserve the thing that people want to come and experience to begin with. And I would imagine that a lot of that conversation went to not developing key areas or ensuring that those more traveled areas get the love and care and support that they need from federal partners, state partners, or whoever happens to manage that. It's interesting to talk about that at the same time where there is a major construction project on the Blue Ridge Parkway in and around the Ashe and Allegheny County areas that will stabilize the parkway for years to come. So did it help in some cases having that kind of circling in the background of, hey, this is about stabilization of this resource and all of the things around it, while also talking about the importance of that for other areas of the parkway moving forward?
Well, no one's ever excited to have the parkway closed in their area, which is what's happening right now in that area. But I think certainly, people can see into the future. Okay, there is investment happening in the actual road, and hoping that this work that emerges from Blue Ridge Rising and the clear ask of the communities to protect resources and also to maintain the things that already exist there, like campgrounds and trails and such, that came through very clearly and loudly in the community meetings and will come through in the plan. So yeah, I think it definitely helped for people to know that, lots of communities were asking for that. And I mean, you touch on something, David. You and I live in a place that is very well visited and loved. Sometimes we say love to death here in the Boone and Blowing Rock area, lots of visitors. What I realized is a lot of visitors kind of the Parkway go to Roanoke, they come to Boone and Blowing Rock, and then they go to Asheville. And I discovered this summer that there are incredible communities in between those three larger areas. So one of the goals is definitely to spread demand, right? How can we encourage visitors to visit some of the smaller communities in addition to the other places and really spend more time in the communities and explore them? Because if people enjoy traveling on the Parkway, this ribbon of green road, they're also going to love traveling in Ashe County and Allegheny County because it looks the same really as the Parkway. So they can have that same and even richer experience with all the cultural aspects and music and crafts and great trails and things like that. So just encouraging people to come off the Parkway into some of these different communities is a huge goal. And wayfinding is one of the things that came up in quite literally every meeting, just encouraging people where to find these great things.
I can only imagine the Parkway looking sign that would point to the ice cream shop in Little Switzerland.
Okay, we're maybe not going to have that.
Yeah.
It's going to be more like our wayfinding that we have here in Watauga County. Help now this way.
Yeah, that's right. Well, from these stakeholder groups, I know that in our meeting there was a quick theme that was brought up of, hey, we need to get these communities together. We need to get in a larger room with multiple regions and start talking about commonalities or ways that communities could market each other. Hey, you're just a day away from spot X, depending on where you are on the map of the Parkway. So that led to this idea of the Blue Ridge Rising two-state convening that just occurred in Blowing Rock earlier this week. Can you tell us a little bit about what went on at that, some of the key takeaways in getting people together from both North Carolina and Virginia as this conversation continues?
Sure. And I'll tell you, this was not in the original plan. So the original sort of scope of work, so to say, of this project was these 29 community meetings and then actually 14 regional meetings that we weren't sure what that was going to look like. But as you said, and I actually think it was as early as the meeting that we had in Boone in the Watauga meeting, we quickly recognized, and I think people who came to those meetings recognized, like, it's pretty amazing to be in a room with people I'm not often in a room with. Maybe it's because they have different line of work, different perspective, or just are from a different community. And we very quickly saw the magic of that, and then just saw the bigger vision of the magic of having people from the two states together and just allowing that synergy to happen. So the idea for the summit emerged sort of as we were moving through the project. And Caroline Ward, the CEO of the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation, is a big visionary. And as soon as we brought the idea to her, she was like, yes, that's what we need to do. So So that's how it emerged. So the two-state summit, as you mentioned, happened in Blowing Rock, and the goal was mainly to create a place for people to connect, but also to present on what the findings were that I mentioned, those 6 key action themes and those action strategies, and start to kind of lay the groundwork for how this will now move forward. Because if you've spent any time with Carolyn, she'll say, like, we are not writing a plan just to write a plan that's going to sit on the shelf. We are going to take action. And I have definitely experienced that with the foundation this past year. They are very motivated. They get things done. They know how to secure funding. So that is the goal, to not let this plan get dusty, but to really take action and start to make these things happen and come to life that are in the plan. So the goal of the summit was bringing people together, but also to start to present these kind of top ideas and get feedback from people in the communities of, like, what resources are already in the communities. How can we move these things forward very rapidly? Who wants to be involved and step up? One idea that Carolyn has really had from the start, but clearly emerged, was creating a Parkway caucus. So, political capital that is bringing together the whole Parkway, the many different jurisdictions that are part of that, to start to elevate the region at a whole at that level, to secure funding and bring attention in the way that the other big national parks do in their own regions, but hasn't happened quite as much here because of the length and disparity of the Parkway. So that's a major goal for her. And so we talked about things like that and just presented on these different topics and how we'll move forward.
I would imagine that from a community resilience perspective too, it was helpful to have folks in a room together to begin to talk about how to leverage resources outside of the Parkway in their communities to build up what that visitor experience ends up looking like. So being able to prioritize for town or county projects that will only make that community stronger, therefore more attractive to Parkway visitors. Was there a lot of discussion between like communities in that regard to again make sure that the light is blinking as brightly as it can, and then when you do get off of the Parkway, you've got the experience to match the expectation?
Yeah, I think every community has their own little secret sauce or something that they're doing in a really amazing way. And so that we got to hear those things as we traveled the Parkway, but just seeing the connections in the room. I mean, really, everyone who I spoke to at the summit was just raving about this opportunity to hear from others and connect with people they didn't know, because there were people from the state, there were people from nonprofits and land conservation agencies. So those creating those connections, and that will certainly lead into forward momentum, I think, was probably the most powerful thing, which is almost always the case, right? It's that opportunity to step outside of our box, get a different perspective. Maybe somebody's already solved a challenge or had a big idea that you've been trying to work through in your own community. So being able to make those connections was just a tremendous part of it.
So I think that the natural way to kind of wrap this conversation is kind of within the action points of what was experienced there. What do you feel like, based on the conversation that you heard over the course of the last couple of days and the presentations, what comes next with this, and also with future opportunities to convene this group and others along the way?
Sure. Well, I can tell you very specifically what comes next is there will be 2 written action plans. And when I say 2, there'll be one that's specifically for Virginia and one that's for North Carolina. Although we at Destination by Design have managed the whole program, we have really approached the project as a singular project. On the back end, they actually are 2 separate projects, and that's just because of the funding source and the management of the projects. Don't need to go into details there, but there will be 2 separate action plans, one for Virginia and one for North Carolina, that will be quite similar, but we'll have a little bit of a different spin on them. So those will come to completion at the beginning of 2024. And the foundation team, the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation team, is already identifying and working on securing funding for those next steps. That will come in the form of grant funding, as well as potentially other funding sources. So I think we'll see action very quickly. Well, I know I will see action quickly because I will be working on writing action plans. but the ball is rolling for the next steps already very rapidly, and they have a pretty clear plan based on the work that we've done together collectively of what those next steps look like. So I think you'll start to hear even more. It will likely, if all goes well, look like additional staff that will help them execute on the things that have surfaced in these plans. So one huge goal is better communication between the Park Service and the communities, because that was identified as a big issue. And there were representatives from the Park Service there at Blue Ridge Rising that really helped to bridge that gap even already. And then certainly even more engagement and activation really from the foundation with the community. So I think this was just the very start of a much tighter and synergistic relationship between the Parkway and the foundation and these gateway communities. So I'm really excited about what comes next. Having worked with the foundation team for the past year, I have no doubt that they will make these things come to life and secure the funding and bring these things to life. So it's going to be fun to witness what happens and see the vision come into reality.
Well, I think you've got the energy to match that. So I hope that you keep putting quarters in the machine there and make sure that this project is seen for what it is. And that's an excellent opportunity to just bring so many folks together with a common interest that impacts not only future business development, it's also a huge community recreation element, quality of life. I mean, this touches our community in so many different ways. And I'm sure that that's echoed up and down the spine of the Parkway as well.
Yeah, I think we take, especially here where we live, David, we take it for granted. It's such an integral part of our community. And, we just take it for granted. Oh, I'm going to go to the Parkway and hike some trails at Cone. It is such an amazing resource, and it is in our hands as community members and citizens to make sure that that's here for your kids, David, and everyone else's kids, and for future generations. And the reality is that we live in a region, this whole Blue Ridge Rising region is very climatically resilient. More and more people want to move here, which is wonderful for the economy, but we also need to recognize that we need to find balance to maintain the things that everyone loves about our communities while also, enabling and supporting the growth, whether that's in tourism or residents or what that looks like. So that's definitely all part of the plan, just recognizing that this is a place where a lot of people are going to want to be in the next, well, they already do, but even more so in the coming years. So how do we find that balance to preserve what we have, but also welcome people who want to be in the magic that we get to be in every day.
Well, and I think it goes without saying that the icing on top of this cake is that Boone-based Destination by Design is such an integral part of this, and you all are end users of this particular aspect of our community to a point where I'm quite sure that you bring expert knowledge far beyond expectation into what the imprint of this particular feature looks like up and down the Parkway, because you use it every day yourselves. And I think that will certainly be something that will inform the work in a way that can't show up in an RFP when you fill out something like that to get work like this. So we appreciate a little slice of our community being imprinted along the Parkway as part of this plan. Again, folks, check out BlueRidgeRising.com. You can review the project to this point and see a little bit more about what's gone on and what is to come in the future. Caroline, can't thank you enough for spending some time with us and breaking this down, and look forward to talking to you more in the future about what comes next with this very important project here in our community.
Great. Thank you so much, David.